So, shalom, everybody. Wonderful to see you. As I always say, familiar faces, new faces. And since this is a series, it is my custom, my minhag, to open the second and the third, and if there are more sessions, always with the question if there is any lingering business from last time, a question that came up, an insight that you might have had and you would like to share, something that you would like for me to address, anything like that. This would be a good time to let me know about it by using your digital hand or waving your hand in front of the camera if you don't know how to use the digital hand. But the digital hand is always better for us who run the session because then we can see you for sure. But I don't see any such thing. So with that, I will assume that there is no lingering business, and we will start with our second session. And as always, I like to start my sessions by turning the PowerPoint on and addressing our topic through it. So you may remember that last week, if you were here or listened to the recording, our main topic was Chaim Nachman Bialik. And the question I raised is Chaim Nachman Bialik, always addressed as the national poet. And then I kept asking questions, but he hardly lived a few years in Israel. He never lived to see the state of Israel. He never experienced the Holocaust. So how can we call a person like that who were not part of the major events of the Jewish people and the land and the state of Israel in the 20th century, and how does this still count as our national poet? And just like with Bialik, I will address myself to a question. I always like to structure my sessions around the question. And in the case of Shaul Chernichovsky, a contemporary of Bialik, I will like to highlight the issue that a Jewish, Hebrew, not so much Israeli, the state of Israel does not exist in Shaul Chernichovsky's lifetime. He too was born far away from Israel and reached and had a limited number of years of life in Israel. But he is a Hebrew poet and a Jewish poet and part of the Zionist movement. And yet he is such a universalist. And how does these two things sort of balance out? Can a person be both Hebrew, Jewish, Zionist poet and universalist at the same time? So this will be the main question that we will address ourselves to. You can see a nice drawing of Shaul Chernichovsky on your screen, and next to it a Greek statue. We will address that. And on the right hand side you can see a picture that, even if you don't know what it is about, it portrays a biblical scenery. And this is exactly the two questions I want to look at, or the two elements I want to look at. Greek culture on one hand, biblical elements on the other. How does Chernichovsky combine the worlds of particularism, being Jewish, being Hebrew, being Zionist, being Israeli, with the general culture of the world? With that, we are going to continue. And first of all, I'd like for you to look at a picture of Chaim Nachman Bialik and Shaul Chernichovsky together. And both of them very young men at the time the picture is taken. And I don't know about your taste in men, ladies and gentlemen as well, but to me, Chernichovsky is a much better looking man than Bialik is, but I do understand that this is a question of taste. What I like you to pay attention is my way of showing the tension or the difference between the two. So I have put two graphics, one on the right-hand side and the other on the left-hand side. Both of them are covers of books. On the right-hand side, created by Chernichovsky. I'll pull up the translation in a minute. Be patient with me. On the left-hand side, it's a book created by Bialik. Again, I'm being specific in my language. And I want to address the question of the particularity of each one of these poets through these two publications, which are not their books of poetry, but other literary work that they have addressed themselves to and invested energy and creativity in. So here is where the English translation comes for those who cannot read the Hebrew. And you will see on the left-hand side, the Hebrew was Sefer Agadah, and the English translation will say the Book of Legends, Sefer HaAgadah, and this is a collection that Bialik and Ravnitsky, a colleague from the same time, worked on together, collecting and editing and arranging thematically all the legends that appear in the Mishnah. And so Bialik invests in bringing Jewish culture to people who will not study Talmud or Mishnah or Gemara separately, but are interested in the world of legends in it. So he will create that. And at the same time, Shaul Chernichovsky is busy bringing to the Hebrew reader Homer's Odyssey. So these are two people who worry about the culture of Jews of their time, and Bialik will invest in energy in collecting the stories of the Talmud, and Chernichovsky will invest his energy in translating the Iliad, the Odyssey, etc. So I think that could be a nice litmus test for you to understand some of the differences between these poets. I am continuing in my next slide to put on the screen a quote that if you were raised in Israel, if you were raised in Hebrew culture, and the name Chernichovsky was mentioned, it would probably come with this very, very famous quote, which says, Ha'adam eno ela pisat karka ktana, ha'adam eno ela tavnit nof moladeto. Man is but a small piece of land. Man is nothing but the shape of his home's landscape. This is the center quote of a long poem that Chernichovsky writes about the area in which he was born and raised, which was a village with a history of Tatar conquest, etc. And he sees himself as a product of that landscape, while Bialik will see himself as a product of the Beit Midrash and the Jewish studies. Chernichovsky will see himself as the product of the landscape in which he was born and raised. And with that, we are starting to go further inside. A bit of a timeline. You know that I am into that, so let's pull it up very quickly. So you can see that he was born in 1875, I think a year or two apart from Bialik. He, like many of the time, I have mentioned that more than once last time, will spend an important amount of time in Odessa, which is the center of Hebrew culture at the time. He will then move to Heidelberg at the turn of the century to medical school. And the important thing to know about Chernichovsky, among other things, is that he was a medical doctor, a pediatrician, as a matter of fact. He will go back to Russia for a variety of reasons. He tried to settle in Eretz Israel and could not make it. He could not have enough livelihood as a poet, did not get a decent job as a doctor. He goes back to Russia. He will act as a doctor during World War I, and then he will continue, like many, many of the poets and Jewish creators, Bialik, Agnon, and others, to Germany, to Berlin, where you could find them after the socialist revolution. These people do not stay in Odessa, and many of them will go to Berlin, where Jewish and Hebrew culture will flourish until it stops. Between the years 1931 and 1943, he lives in Israel between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. And so you can see a span of the time more or less. And now we shall place the poems that I have chosen for you. Hopefully we will do all of them, but I never rush, so we will see how much time it takes us, if questions will be raised, and so on. The earliest one that I will want to address is the poem, I believe, known to Hebrew speakers as Sachki Sachki. We'll come to that in a moment. He is a pretty young man at the time he writes it, and it's a very important one, also set to music. We will look at two poems from the period of his medical studies, and we will look at the tension between the impact of universal culture, the poem in front of Apollo statue, and the other one dealing with the biblical theme of his namesake, Saul, the first king of the kingdom of Israel. And then two poems that will deal with different aspects of his connections to the land of Israel, to Eretz Israel, not yet the state of Israel. And the question that I'd like to throw to you, and will take a minute to address if there will be a reason for that. Matthew will tell me if you see somebody getting very excited, is that if you are looking at my choice of poems and you are knowledgeable in Tchaikovsky, and if any of you is now at the moment, Rachel, how can you possibly do a Tchaikovsky session without, like, a very important poem in your mind is missing, and you want to make sure that I am not forgetting? If there is such a case, I'm willing to step out of my PowerPoint for a moment to check if anybody would like to correct my choice, to criticize my choice, to draw my attention to a poem that should have been included and isn't. And so far, I see no hands raised and nobody waving in excitement. So I will have to assume that you are accepting my choices for the lack of a better choice. And indeed, this is what we are going with. Okay. The poem I would like to spend indeed some time with is our first one, the poem Sachki Sachki. And in order to address the poem, called in translation Credo, I believe, in Hebrew we never use the official name, but we use the first two words of the poem, Sachki Sachki. We'll come to that in a moment. And what I need for you to see, that this is a square in a town in Israel, and the square is dedicated not to Shaul Chernichovsky. The square is dedicated to the poem, to the one poem by Shaul Chernichovsky. If you can read some Hebrew or recognize the letters at least, you can see that there is a picture of Chernichovsky, there is his signature recreated at the bottom, but the center of the monument are two lines from the poem Sachki Sachki, or Credo. So with that, I'm going to pull the poem on the screen, and we will start looking at it more seriously. So one of the translations will say, I believe. Some of the translations you will able to find will use the title Credo, which is Latin for I believe. And we Israelis know that the poem is titled Ani Ma'amin, and yet we call it after the first lines. So let me pull the Hebrew up for you on the screen. No, we will not start with the Hebrew. Let's go for the English. Rejoice, rejoice now in the dreams. I, the dreamer, am he who speaks. Rejoice, for all I have faith in mankind, for in mankind I believe. For my soul still dreams for freedom. I've not sold it to call of God, to a call of gold. For I shall yet have faith in mankind, in its spirit great and bold, that will cast off binding chains, raise us up, hold high our heads. Workers will not die of hunger, for souls release for poor folk bread. Rejoice, for I have faith in friendship. I'll find a heart in this I have faith, a heart that shares in all my hopes, a heart that feels both joy and pain. And I shall keep faith in the future, though the day be yet unseen. Surely it will come when nations all live in blessed peace. Then my people too will flourish, and the generation shall arise in the land, shake off its chains, and see light in every eye. It shall love, accomplish labor. In the land it is alive, not in the future, not in heaven, and its spirit shall henceforth thrive. A poet shall sing a new anthem, his heart aware of beauty sublime. For him, that young man above my tomb blossoms in wreath shall twine. So this is a translation by Vivian Eden. You can find her translations all over, also in the Jerusalem Post and other places. The poem is from 1892, and I'd like to start by drawing attention that the word anthem is mentioned in the last verse, and indeed, throughout the years, I would say in the last 20 or 30 years, occasionally people in Israel will rise up and say, is it not yet time to change Hatikva, our anthem, into Credo, I believe, Sachki by Shaul Chernichovsky? Why do people say that? Why does this question keep arising every couple of years? It was never accepted, but the question is raised. So let me show you. Hatikva has the famous line, oh, while within a Jewish heart yearns through a Jewish soul, right? Kolod belev pnima nefesh Yehudi homia. This is the anthem of the state of Israel. 20% of our population is not Jewish. And people will raise the question, how can an anthem not represent all citizens of the country and only address the Jews? And therefore, a poem that has a line, I'll have faith in mankind, sounds very attractive to people who would like our anthem to be more inclusive. So as I'm telling you, it was never accepted so far, but the question keeps rising time and again, and never have I seen any other suggestions for a song or a poem to replace Hatikva, but Sachki Sachki. Here is now in front of you the Hebrew text, and this is my opportunity to draw your attention to a couple of elements. And let's go. So, the first lines, Sachki Sachki al החלומות, זו אני החולם סח. שחקי כי באדם אאמין, כי עודני מאמין בך. The opening of the poem is a call to a muse, a call to a spirit that is supposed to enjoy these dreams, and the declaration of the poet, this is what I am saying, keep on muse, because I believe in man and I still believe in you. As we go on, we have that statement repeated, Ki od aamin gam ba'adam, gam berucho ruach az. For I shall yet have faith in mankind, in its spirit, great and bold. When you see these lines, you see how the poet strengthens his belief in the spirit, the universal spirit of mankind. Interesting line at the time, and I still kept in front of you the date way before any socialist revolution, even in the parts of the world where Chernichovsky comes from, that will come in 1905 and then later and so on. And look at this very socialist kind of statement. Workers will not die of hunger. For souls release, for poor folk bread. A very clear I'm sorry to say that it needs to be socialist, or it can be also treated as humanistic, but people in that world that he is dreaming about is not just a general faith in universal values. It also wants to make sure that people are all safe in this world. The next thing that Credo, I believe, believes in is the hope for love. Chernichovsky is a very young man at this point. He hasn't yet found his partner in life, his spouse, his beloved, but he expresses the faith that this will happen. Rejoice, for I have faith in friendship. I will find a heart. In this I have faith. He knows that this will come, and we can go on with that, but I want to spend a moment to put this poem next to the bird for a moment, because we have spent some time with To the Bird last week, and that was the poem that believed in that happy reunion between the people of Israel and the land of Israel, and the connectedness between brothers far and near, and the care about every ravine and every mountain in Eretz Israel. That's Bialik. And you put next to it, and look, the poems are barely a year apart. So they represent more or less the same period. And we oftentimes will find ourselves making generalizations as statements. You know, at the last decade of the 19th century, there were these early Zionists who said this, that, and the other. And we tend to overlook differences. And within the same part of the world, and this is the time that both of them will find their way to Odessa. So in the same town, these two great Hebrew poets, very clearly Zionist, and yet one of them is totally connected to the unique, the particular, the ours, while the other can express the same general beautiful ideas through a universal mode of speaking. I'd like to take a moment, and I hope you will not find me to be too much of a nudnik. And I'm going to check with you before I do that. I want to be a little bit pedantic Hebrew teacher. So I'm wondering how many of you will find interest in looking at a particular mistake in translation that is worthwhile noticing, and a classical mistake about this particular poem. So would you like to show me quickly a show of hand by waving your hand if you are okay with me being pedantic for 2 moments? Okay, I hope you can survive that. All the others, bear with me. It will all be, of course, discussed in English, needless to say. So let me take you there. So here we are with a couple of the lines of the poem, and I am drawing your attention to the first lines. In the second line, in Hebrew it says, and I'm reading the first line as well, Sachki, Sachki al chalomot, rejoice, rejoice now in the dreams, Zu ani hacholem sach. I, the dreamer, am he who speaks. Seriously? If this was the translation, the Hebrew should have been Ze ani hacholem sach. Hebrew is gender. Shaul Chernichovsky is a man. He should not speak of himself as Zu. Zu is female. So actually, and Chernichovsky had written Zu and not Ze, and his Hebrew is good enough to know the difference. It's because what he meant is a slightly different translation. This is what I am telling you, that the Zu, is about the statement, which is female, and not the gender of the speaker. So every single time when you sing the poem, you should know that Chernichovsky is not declaring, I'm the speaker. He is saying, this is my statement. This is the important thing. It's not about me, it's about what I'm saying. The other thing you may want to enjoy is the line Ki od a'amin gam ba'adam, for I shall yet have faith in mankind. How many of you held a 50 shekel note in your hand? It has Chernichovsky on one side, and if you turn it to the other side, you will find this line of the quote. Ki od a'amin gam ba'adam. I hope you can see. I highlighted it for you so you can see how popular and how every day we are holding these particular lines of Chernichovsky in our hands. It's really part of our life. I want to tell you that people who have disagreements with the choice of Chernichovsky to appear on any of our banknotes do that because Chernichovsky was married to a Christian woman, a non-Jew, and they thought that that was reason enough not to accept to have his face appear on an Israeli banknote. Obviously, there were people who thought differently. Before we move on, I think that all of you who know a little bit about the particular poem we just have read know that it was set to music. So I would like to share with you one of the renditions. And before I do that, I'd like to draw your attention to something. Rona Kainan, the singer, whose rendition I have chosen for you, when will have heard a little bit of her singing, I will stop and switch to another rendition, and I do that out of respect to my mom's memory because she preferred that other rendition. So every single time I teach this poem, I'll give 1 minute in memory of my mom, Zichrona Livracha. But let me draw your attention to the Rona Kainan rendition. It's all in Hebrew, but once you know what is happening, you will understand. It's the end of a concert, and she is now responding to requests from the audience. And she's asking them, and you can see the pantomime with her hand movement. So what do you want me to sing for you? And she goes like to one row and down there. She seems to collect suggestions, and they seem all to be for the same song. So she asked them, do you know the lyrics? Because it wasn't included in her program. It's probably not lyrics that she had prepared or had projected. And she said, well, it's your responsibility. And then she starts singing, and it's Kisachki, which the audience, and Rona Kainan is like contemporary. She is now a very popular singer. It's not something from the past. So let me take you there, and I hope you will enjoy it. בבקשה.
עוד משהו שתרצו לשמוע? יאללה. יש מישהו פה שזוכר את המילים בעל פה?
Does anybody remember the words?
הדליקו לי אור בבקשה. כל מי שמרים יד על אחריותו.
It's your responsibility, the lyrics, she says. Can you all see and hear? Matt, just nod. Okay.
שחקי שחקי על החלומות, זו אני החולם שח. שחקי כי בא על אדם מאמין, כי יודע מאמין בה. שחקי כי האדם מאמין, כי יודעני מאמין. כי עוד נפשי דרור שואפת, לא מכרתיה לעגל פז. כי עוד אמין גם באדם, גם ברוחו רוח עז, כי עוד אמין גם באדם, גם ברוחו רוח עז. רוחו ישליך כבלי הבל, ירוממנו במותי על. לא ברעב ימות עובד, דרור לנפש פת לדל. לא ברעב ימות עובד, דרור לנפש פת לדל.
Okay, let me step out of the Rona Kainan rendition. And since, as I told you, this was my mom's absolutely a favorite song, I try every single time that I teach it to spend at least a couple of minutes with the rendition of Arik Lavi, Long Gone. It's a very old one. And let me share it with you for a moment. It's very, very different.
שחקי שחקי על החלומות, זו אני החולם שח. שחקי כי באדם אמין, כי עודני מאמין בך. שחקי כי באדם אמין, כי עודני מאמין בך. כי עוד נפשי דרור שואפת, לא מכרתי על עגל פז. כי עוד אמין גם באדם, גם ברוחו רוח עז. כי עוד אמין גם באדם, גם ברוחו רוח עז.
Okay, just 1 minute in memory of my mom of blessed memory. And now we can continue. Before I continue, is there anybody who has particular memories of this song? Because it used to be for many years a very popular one. Anybody would like to share a memory, a thought, a recognition of the song, of the tune? We can spare a minute for that if there is anybody. Beverly, why don't you go ahead?
Oh, well, I just remember, I remember singing that in Young Judea camp when I learned all the songs from long ago, and it was one of the most beautiful songs that I remember. And so now, of course, at the time, I didn't really understand what I was singing, but I understood the emotion behind it, and it's stuck in my memory, and so I remember it very, very well.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And it has never yet happened that when I was teaching Sachsiki Sachki, there wouldn't be anyone, sometimes more, in the audience who are connecting personally to this particular one. So with that, let me take you back to my PowerPoint presentation so we can continue our journey. And as you can see, we are now watching the site of a very German town. This is Heidelberg. This is the place where the young student from a small Russian village in the southern Ukraine is traveling. He started in Switzerland and then he goes to Heidelberg. A few years ago, I was taking one of those river cruises from Holland to Switzerland. And one of the stops was in a town on the way, and they were offering a day tour to Heidelberg. And I went on that tour, and the tour guide was offering all sorts of things and views, etc. And I said, no, 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 you don't understand. I am looking for something very, very different. I need to go in the town to the medical school. And in the medical school, I know there is a gallery, and I need to go to that gallery because there is a statue there, and you can also see the bridge, etc. But there is a statue there in the gallery, and this is where I need to go because this is the statue of Apollo Belvedere. It's a small one. You would think from the poem that it's a huge statue. It's not. And I needed to go there. I said, but what's for you in that statue? I said, you don't understand. It's an Israeli poem, a Hebrew poet who wrote about this, and I need to see that statue. I want to see that gallery. Because the whole point of the poem, Facing Apollo's Statue, is about a Jew coming and really admiring the epitome of Western culture, the body, the beauty of Apollo, this Greek culture thing. And I listened again today to a wonderful lecture by Professor Ariel Hirschfeld of the Hebrew University, and I want to give him credit, and I do every single time, about the proper way to read this. And Ariel Hirschfeld will suggest that the key to understanding the poem, which seems very critical of Judaism, which seems very admiring of Western culture, we totally misunderstand it if we skip over the second line. So let me read the second line with you, with the first, of course. The poem starts facing Apollo's statue. באתי עדיך אל נשכח מעולם, אל ירחי קדם וימים אחרים. I came upon you, forgotten God, God of months gone by and other days. What Ariel Hirschfeld is teaching us is the meaning of the Hebrew word kedem, which cannot be translated into English. The English takes the whole sentence, El yarchei kedem v'yamim achirim, God of months gone by and other days. But choosing to translate yarchei kedem, months gone by, you are deciding at the same time to drop the two other possible meanings of the word kedem, who, according to Ariel Hirschfeld, Professor Hirschfeld, I should say, are crucial to the understanding. The word kedem in Hebrew indeed means before, month gone by, but it also means the east. Kedem is east, Eretz Israel. And it is also the root of kadima, of forwards. So the Hebrew has admiration for the past, connectedness to the East, and a wish for the future to go forward. And Ariel Hirschfeld, in his reading of this poem, recognizes the critique of the limitations of Judaism, recognizes the admiration of the foreign culture, and yet says this is Chernichovsky's understanding of what Jews need to be. Lenochach Pesel Apollo, a little bit of Ivrit and then the English. Bati adecha el nishkach me'olam, el yarchei kedem v'yamim achirim. I came upon you, forgotten God, God of months gone by and other days, ruling over currents of persons fresh, the waves of their strengths, abundance of youth, to a generation giants and great of the earth, conquering arm of borders of dwellers so high, the seat of crowned sons, bay leaf on their proud foreheads, ruling over gods of his likeness, more heed to the secrets of rulers of the world, drunk of the richness of life, ruler of the land, foreign to the sick and painful, youth God, great flash, complete of beauty, dominates the sun and the mysteries of life, the mists of poetry and its archives. I'm stopping here because Professor Hirschfeld offered another clue. So look at this line, the mists of poetry and its archives. And the Hebrew says, Beyam hanigunim be'alfei galemo. So we went through all these very flowery descriptions of the bodily beauty and the ability to conquer and the physical strength, and all of them in the midst of poetry and its archives, and we think we are absolutely immersing ourselves in that foreign culture. And then tells us Professor Hirschfeld, look at the original Hebrew with the very unique structure of the wave, myths of poetry and its archives, the thousand waves, the sea of music. If in Hebrew today you wanted to say it's waves, you wouldn't say galemo. That's an archaic, old-fashioned Hebrew, which Chernichovsky didn't speak. It's not Chernichovsky's generation. It's biblical. In Chernichovsky's Hebrew and mine, you would say galav, their waves, and not galemo. Where does the galemo come from? That particular structure comes from Shirat Hayam, the song of the sea after crossing the Sea of Reeds that Miriam and the singers sing. And then you can see in Pasuk Yudbet, in the 12th verse, Natita yemincha tivlaemo, the earth swallowed. Bal'a, you would say in Hebrew today. And then in verse 17, tevoemo, tit'aemo. These are structures of Hebrew that we do not use anymore. Neither have they used it in Chernichovsky's time. As Chernichovsky is glorifying Apollo, he brings forth the glory of the Jewish people at its best, when it conquered the Egyptians, when it crossed the sea, when nature was on their side helping them. So Chernichovsky is not turning his back on Jewish culture and history. He is pulling it out to a meeting with this universal culture, to the joy of life in all their wealth and splendor, their validity and colorful secret shades. I came upon you. Do you recognize me? Now there's going to be practically a dialogue, only one-sided, because the statues cannot answer. And look at something interesting. The English says, I am a Jew. Battles for us forever. Is that what Chernichovsky had said? No. Chernichovsky had said, Hineni ha-Yehudi. I am the Jew. Here he steps out of his individual role of a student in the medical school, standing there in the gallery and having an intimate conversation with a Western culture statue. He says, no, no, no. I come to this meeting as the representative of all Jews. I am the Jew. And I want to recognize the fact that there is a battle between us forever. From the waters and oceans to the parts of continents, abyss between us 45s, full to its mouth with their uproar and noise. Wide prairies and heavens they have reaped to fill the dividing rift. My father's Torah, the measure of your admirer, your eye that sees me, since I have stayed far from all those who went before me, and after me other mortals ere. Let me be the first to return to you. Here is now a modern Zionist call. Jews need to be able to reconnect with that other culture that 2,000 years of diasporic exile life have distanced us from. The connectedness to body, the connectedness to fighting, the connectedness to nature. So let me be the first, the measure of your admirer, and let me be the first to return to you. Now is moment. I had enough of dying generations. It's time I broke my soul's shackles, my living soul linked to the earth. The people had aged, and so did its God aged with him. Our culture has aged. Our God is now old, suffocating emotion, powerless creatures. Came alive after generations of confinement, the light of the Almighty on me. Every joint cries out. He comes in front of Apollo as somebody in shackles, and he needs to somehow disconnect or free himself from that aging God, from that aging religion. He is craving a change. And we find our ways to the end of the poem, life, oh life. Every bone, every artery. Listen to the medical student. Can you hear the medical student speaking to him? He is studying that, the physics of a body. So every bone, every artery. Bialik would never write a line like that. His world of imagery, of metaphors was very, very different. God's light and life, and to you I came upon you, I bow before you, oy vavoy. Your statue, a symbol of life's light. I bow, I kneel to the might good. He whose throne is all over the world, glorious of all creation, which was uplifted, secrets of creativity. I kneel to life, heroism, and beauty. I kneel to treasures robbed by dead people and rot seed of man, rebels of life, and the hand of Shaddai, my rock, God of miraculous deserts, God who takes Canaan by storm, strapped by tefillin. We used to be the fighting people. We used to be the ones who could conquer Canaan, the ones who could free themselves from slavery. But now, after these many years of aging, we are strapped by tefillin. If we ever continue our studies of modern Israeli literature, you will see a very modern poet, Yona Volach, who takes this image of the limitations of tefillin and the binding of tefillin as something that is closing our ability to move ahead to a much further interpretation and distance. Needless to say that in Israeli culture, there are many who see a problem in reading or teaching or discussing this poem. It looks disrespectful to Judaism. It looks critical. It doesn't appear in school's program anymore. Yet in my time, we had it in high school. We studied it in high school. We had to commit to memory some of the lines of it, and it was part of the conversation, part of the discussion. I am sorry to tell you that it is not anymore. It is seen as something very problematic. I am going to allow maybe a comment or two if there is anybody who would like to ask a question or to address themselves. Yes, Ramon, bevakasha.
תודה רבה על הכל. I wanted to ask you a couple things. The first about Apollo. At the very end, I read the line El Elohai a couple times. It's translated as God and not to my God, and I wanted your observation on that. The second thing is that I think you made me rethink of the end of Megillat Eicha when we say Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem.
Renew our days as before, yeah.
But instead of as before, as the East. Because, right?
Kedem always holds the two meanings, and also Kadima. And also forward. And you need to be able to hold this complexity. And had it not been for Professor Hirschfeld, I wouldn't have noticed it.
But since
so it's not.
Since Megillat Eicha is about Yerushalayim, I thought today we finished the Torah service with these words, but it's actually also a geographical
connectedness to the east, connectedness to Hamakom, to that place. And note how the word Makom, place in Hebrew, also carries additional meanings. Right. As for the Elohai, etc., yes, the English translation loses the very personal connectedness. Shaul Chernichovsky is not abandoning God. He's not throwing away God. He says, my God has aged. My God needs to be renewed. But he is not disconnecting. He's trying to hold the two together. And thank you for your question. And since we have done that, I don't see any additional hands raised. Do you, Matt, maybe?
Could I ask a question?
Yes, who is
Serena? Yeah. I'm sorry. I signed on in the last minute, and I don't really want to be on video, but thank you very much.
Your question, please.
Yeah, sure. Well, I wanted to make a comment actually about how significant the Apollo symbol is also, because not only is Apollo the god of healing and poetry, he's also the god of poetry and music. And also healing. So it's really a powerful symbol, I feel. I'm a doctor and a poet myself, so.
Okay, so you can be totally connected to Chernichovsky.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll take Lynn. Please go ahead. Lynn, please unmute yourself if you want to address us.
Thank you for this fantastic examination of these poems. I also wanted to say that I kept thinking of the Messiah related, I believe with full faith in the coming of the Messiah, and how different the Chernikovsky is from that, because it's all about humanism, not about the great.
But using the same concept of expressing your faith, the same structure, the same ritual, but for other things. Thank you very much. Sherry will take a very short comment, a question, because there's still some more poems that I'd like to address. Don't forget to unmute. You need to unmute. Yeah, you're good now.
Okay. May I ask, was Saki Saki put to music during Chernikovsky's lifetime or afterwards? Like, did he ever get to hear his poem put to music?
You know what? I never looked at it. For me, it's a tune and the music that had always been there. And I'm almost 80 years of age. So I don't, but still Chernichovsky died before I was born. So I'm not sure. I will look into it, and please join us next week and I'll have an answer for you. Okay,
Thank you.
It's a very old tune. We have been singing it for ages. And with that, let us now, we owe it to Chernichovsky not to allow ourselves to stay on the Apollo side, but go immediately to the other side, as I have suggested to you. And I'm skipping now this. And again, I bring you now these two pictures that I had at the beginning. Facing Apollo's statue, we now discussed that a bit. And now we are allowing Chernichovsky to travel with us to a heartbreaking biblical event. And he is going there because it's all about his namesake, Shaul, the very troubled soul of the first king of Israel, who managed to displease God, to displease the prophet, and he is about to fight his last battle against the Philistine on Mount Gilboa. And before the battle at night, Torah tells us, actually prophets, that he travels to see a sorceress, a fortune teller, to tell him what will happen, to let him speak to Samuel, the prophet who made him king and who forsake him. So this is the place where the meeting takes place, Kibbutz Endor. Again, because we use the very important explanation of the word kedem, that it connects to a place, I want to show you how these places are still relevant. So Endor, that place where the biblical event took place, is a kibbutz today. And so that you know, the dot at the bottom is Kvutzat Geva, where I was born. So like about half an hour drive from there. And the dot on the left-hand side is where my daughter and granddaughter live today in another kibbutz. So this part of the country, with its biblical lore and stories, is very much part of my life as well as of the lives of many others. Here is Mount Tavor in the area, some beautiful flowers of the time, the way to the kibbutz of today, and a little bit. I need you to hear the rhythm of the galloping horse of the miserable, disturbed, emotionally disturbed king that night. ובחשכת הליל בלי קשת ושלח, על סוס קל אין דורה בא שאול המלך. ובאחד הבתים אור כהה הופיע, פה תגור? הנער לא חרש הביע, את בעלת האהוב? כן, אדוני, הנני. You can even from the sound hear the drama of the galloping and the conversation at the door of Endor, of the fortune teller. In the dark of night, with neither bow nor javelin, he let go of all the signs of his power. On the back of a light horse, Endora. Now that's an English form of the Hebrew way of conjugating the name of a place with the direction. Endor is the name of the place. Endora is towards Endor, and the translation kept it. Endora came King Saul. In one of the houses, dark light appeared. Here she lives, the boy had quietly expressed. The sorceress, yes, sir, here I am. Conjure up your magic. Show me the shadow of the seer, that's Samuel, the prophet. Darkness, fire of horrors. In the corner, a cauldron, the names of all the demons and the boiling concoction. Like a swimming snake in the Bashan grass, pillars of smoke crawling in a vicious circle, sulfur, anointed. There stand the king, restless in his heart, creatures of mist, images of idols, beads of sweat trickled down his cheek. His spirit slackened, his soul aches, how his heart melts and prophesies death. He doesn't need the prophet anymore, his heart knows. His whole life passes in front of his eyes. Leave me alone, let me be, his lips whisper. Darkness, fire, silence of graves, a vicious circle and smoking cauldron. The king remembered his youth at Geva, which is where he was taken from by the prophet to become a king. The spring of his days before his skies darkened. Spectacular images his eyes beheld, vast meadows, grazing cows, heavenly blue sweet scents, under the pistachia trees of sturdy oaks. There rest shepherds led, mornings dance away in furrows, but peace and pleasantness, but beauty and splendor. Give me a sec here to clear the screen. How pleasant the ringing, the bells of the herd. I'm happy, healthy, and fresh. May I be able to thus care free. A terrible sadness pressed his heart. Tears flooded down his throat. A sudden great voice thundered, and lightning lit up the darkness. I am the seer who anointed you king. From behind the kettle to the palace I took you. Why did you call me from the burrows of decay? Why did you bring me to the lands of the living? Why did you take me from behind the sheep? So the prophet complains, the prophet is dead already. Why did the king bring him out from the land of shades and shadows and decay? And the king is complaining, why did you bring me to the lands of the living? Why did you take me from behind the sheep? Asks the king. Why did you make me governor of your people? I wasted my strength in the storms of war. The domestic's blessing turned into wilderness. Philistines surround me, horrors of death. My soul is depressed. Man, my goodness, what will God answer me? He left me. What shall I do? Answer me. Why have you made me king over your people? Why did you take me from behind the flock? For your obstinacy, your pride, God rages. Tomorrow you are with me, both you and your people. At the hour of the morning, and the morning watch with no bow nor javelin, on a light horse, King Saul returns to camp. His face is pale, but his heart does not fear, and in his eyes twinkle the terrible despair. The poem Shaul Be'endor, I think, is an amazing testimony for Shaul Chernichovsky's knowledge not only of the human body as a physician, but of the human soul. I do not know what drove him personally to the character of this very disturbed first king of Israel. Why in these pre-state years he creates a poem that puts such a question mark on the issue of becoming king, on the issue of assuming responsibility, of assuming leadership. Is he troubled by what awaits the Jewish people as they move into their own? I am not sure, but I am sure that when the time will come and Shaul Chernichovsky will move to live in the state of Israel, he will witness. I'm now skipping one poem in order to reach the poem that is most important for me to teach you, Sea, O Land, and that will be the one we will conclude. A bit about its background. The poem is written in 1938. This is a few years before Shaul Chernichovsky passes away. He lives in the land of Israel. It's after World War I. It's the time of the Arab riots. It's time of battles and fighting and killing throughout the country. So we have the Great Arab Revolt between 36 and 39. And we have the wave of immigrants from Germany after the rise of Nazis to power. We have the Peel Commission that will come to decide what will be the future of the British Mandate. There will be more in the coming decade. It's a very difficult time to live in. Eretz Israel does not seem with a promising future as those Zionists would have wanted it. Germany that they have left behind betrayed them as well with the rise of the Nazis to power. And here in the land of Israel, you have the Haganah and the Irgun already fighting. The Wingate, Ord Wingate created the field brigades to defend Jewish settlements at the time, but the losses are terrible. And in one of those mornings where the Jewish population has to face a large number of victims, a thing that is known to us here in Israel, Chernichovsky writes one of the poems that will be, if Israel had a holy book of secular poetry, then this would be probably the second piece in it. The first would be The Silver Platter by Alterman. Chernichovsky had given us that day a poem of mourning for lost young fighters that is, again, very Chernichovsky. Because at that period in our lifetime, and for many years afterwards, still to this very day, we tend to glorify the death. We tend to find good reasons and causes so that we can explain to ourselves that it was worthwhile. It is not popular today, neither was it then, to mourn the loss and the wastefulness of war. Chernichovsky, the Universalist, dares. So a few words in Hebrew and then to the English. ראי אדמה, ראי אדמה כי היינו בזבזנים עד מאוד. בחיקך מילון ברכה מעון סתר זרע טמנו, לא עוד פניני זגוגיות של קוסמת זרע חיטה כבדה. גרגר שעורה, חתול כתם, שיבולת שועל חרדה. ראי אדמה כי היינו בזבזנים עד מאוד. פרחי פרחים בך טמנו, רעננים ובהוד. See, O land, see, O land, how wasteful we have been. In your lap, place of blessing, hiding womb, we have hidden a seed. No more glassy pearls of buckwheat, seeds of heavy wheat, grains of barley draped in innocent, anxious oats. See, O land, how wasteful we have been. Flowery flowers we buried in your fresh and glorious, kissed by the sun's first kiss. Hidden beauty, graceful stem, their incense cups just full, before they knew noontime, before tunes of morning dew in the light dreams of their growing. Here, take the best of our sons, pure dreaming youth, spotless hearts, clean of hands yet unspoiled. The textures of their day is still weft of hope yet to come. We have no better, have you seen? And where? All these you shall cover. Plant will grow in good time, 100-fold of splendor and might, sacred to the land. Blessed is their sacrifice in the secret folds of death. Our lives ransomed with glory. See, O land, how wasteful we have been. This is 1938, and Chernichovsky is already mourning the wastefulness of war. And in that maybe is connected himself to the famous poem of In Flanders Fields, as the flowers grow where the soldiers have fallen. Chernichovsky indeed with this poem had given us a different way of mourning for the lost lives of young people in battle. At the time when mainstream Israel, then and now, still does not allow any criticism, but opts for the glory of the victorious death, Chernichovsky, maybe as a doctor, maybe as a human being, recognizes the individual pain and gives it words. It's a waste of young life. One should mourn the wastefulness in war and not just glorify the victory. So here is another voice for you, right next to Bialik that we have seen last week, a person that brought a variety of different colors into the poetic Hebrew conversation. When next we meet, we shall meet finally a woman poet, Rachel, and this is my choice of her poems that I will be happy to discuss with you next week. Let me step out of my PowerPoint presentation now and take the time for our conversation and comments, your insights, your question about any of the poems that we have seen today and things connected to them. Bevakasha, please go ahead.
This is Miri, the person who can't make my camera show.
Yeah, my
So
neighbor Mary. Yeah.
your neighbor, yes. So my problem tonight is that it's been much harder for me to understand what Chernikovsky is saying than it was with Bialik. And it reminds me of when I'm reading Song of Songs or Mishle, Proverbs, or Kohelet. It's like I just feel like I'm kind of getting phrases and sentence fragments, and they seem to be. I'm having a harder time just
Mhm.
going with him. It seems, and it could be the translations, but it seems as if he almost is coming out with stream of consciousness, a few words here, a few words, a phrase, another phrase.
Not in all his poems. First of all, we can see your picture now, Mary, so try to operate the video again. But it's not that important. Chernyshkovsky has a different style, a different use of Hebrew. And to some, he is more difficult to understand. I can see that. And but Bialik is not too easy either. Depends what you read of either of them. And I hope that I did help you see at least some of the meanings of some of the poems.
Okay, thank you.
You are more than welcome. Matt, will you continue to run this?
Sure, I see Sherry has her hand raised.
First, I want to thank you for another just wonderful lecture. I'm enjoying this so much. I have a question about the poem Ein Zur. When reading this, and I can't read Hebrew, so I have to go strictly with the English translation. But to me, it struck me as sounding very Shakespearean.
Yeah,
Is that like an
totally.
odd
Macbeth.
thought for me to have?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And now remember how Chernyshkovsky is the one who will translate French poetry and Russian poetry, and he would read Shakespeare and translate the Odyssey. This is exactly it. He brings into his writing influences from other cultures that we will see less in Bialik. Bialik is very rooted in yeshiva, in Talmud, in Gemara. Chernyshkovsky didn't have that in his upbringing. He has a basic Jewish education, but not the depth of Bialik. And he devotes his life to get to know all the rest, the Greek, the Russian, etc., and totally Macbeth influenced. Absolutely, you are 100% right. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, let's give it another moment. Maybe we will get somebody.
Yes, I have a question, a comment.
Yeah.
Last week, you said that Chaim Nachman Bialik came to Israel kind of late in his career, and Chernikovsky did also. And Chaim Nachman Bialik was invited, and he was, etc. And I also once read that Chernikovsky, as a doctor, was invited to write a medical text or to
True.
a lexicon, a dictionary of medical terms for Israel, and that was why he came there. I mean, one of the
Yeah.
reasons.
So the history of these two poets, as per their arrival and life in Israel, is very different. Chernichovsky tries once, and it just doesn't happen for him. He cannot make a living. He cannot live properly, neither of his poetry. He gets that commission to write that lexicon, and they don't pay him on time. And he's really miserable. And finally, he goes back, and he will make Aliyah much later again. And then he will try to make it with a combination of a job. He was the doctor of schools in Tel Aviv. My sister's mother-in-law, who is over 100 years of age now, remembers him as the doctor coming to do the checkups on kids in school, and how every single time it was a big event because the doctor poet came to see them in school. Because of his Christian wife, who wanted to live near a Pravoslav church in Jerusalem, he moved in next to her. He wasn't very popular because this complexity of family, this attraction of other cultures, and yet his poetry was loved by many, and printed again, and successful. So the stories are very, very different. However, in today's conversation, you always go like Bialik and Chernichovsky, as if they were inseparable couple. Well, one should separate occasionally and pay attention to each one of them separately. However, if you come visit, go to the cemetery at the center of Tel Aviv and see how they are also buried one next to the other. And thank you for your question. Anybody else? Matt, what say you? Yeah, Hannah, bevakasha.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how students today, I mean, like I'm teaching tonight a bunch of sixth graders in a synagogue. So how are sixth graders, all boys, you should anyway, how do they relate to Chernikovsky, because his references, his use of language is archaic in some ways, and there are so many references to so many things in the past, to Rome, to this, to that. How is he taught today? How do
He's
students?
practically not taught anymore. Very
Oh,
little is taught of him. This belongs to, this is my generation. We studied it. We had to figure out the connotations and the biblical allusions, etc. And I'm talking about a secular Israeli school, not talking about an observant, what we call religious school. On the contrary, Chernichovsky is more popular with secular Israelis because his allusions are biblical and not Talmudic. The Tanakh, the biblical, is perceived as the world, like all secular people read Tanakh. We know the stories, not necessarily all the layers of commentary of later on. While the world of Mishnah and Gemara belongs more to the observant people, not necessarily today anymore, but used to be in the past. So connectedness to biblical lore, that's not a difficulty. We have that in the secular world, even today, not as much as in the past. The other thing that I haven't touched today, and thank you for your question, Hannah, is that both Chernichovsky and Bialik are literally the founders of Israeli children's literature. Before these two chevre, again, I'm quoting Ariel Hirschfeld of a recorded lecture that I listened to this morning. Said there was no children's literature, and Hirschfeld says jokingly, there were no children. I mean, of course they were kids, but they were perceived as small adults waiting to grow up and coming to their own. And nobody invested in books for children or songs for children or poetry for children. and it is Bialik and Chernichovsky to be followed by Leah Goldberg and Alterman, etc., the next generation of the 30s and 40s that really create this world. So in response to your question, a smart teacher will look up the Chernichovsky, maybe a poetry for younger people, and work through that, and that will be more accessible. This is the best answer I can give you at this point. And of course, we'll take any additional question or comment should there be any.
Thank you all for joining us again for this session, and thank you, Rachel, for such a great learning. We look forward to next week's session with Rachel.
When we are reading Rachel. Toda rabah. Until we meet again, have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you very much, everybody.